Hello, and welcome to Law Talk. My name is John Celebrezze, and I'm the co-founder of the Celebrezze-Zangi Community Legal Education Project, as we call it, CZ-CLEP for short. Our organization provides continuing education about the judiciary and legislature to attorneys, judges, government officials, and the general public. As a career educator, I recognize early on how important legal matters are and how they impact our lives. I am the nephew of the late Anthony J. Celebrezze, who was the popular 5-term mayor of Cleveland and a member of President Kennedy's cabinets. As a tribute to his lifetime commitment to the legal process, we dedicate this show.
John's guest today is attorney Jim Amodio with the law firm of Brown & Amodio. Jim's practice concentrates in the area of real estate, business formation, estate planning, and contracts. He's also owner of AFC Title Agency, which issues title insurance as an agent of Ohio Bar Title Insurance Company. For the past 7 years, Jim has been involved with the mock trial program for Ohio high school students. He volunteers as a legal advisor for the Buckeye High School mock trial program. Also joining John today is Buckeye High School senior Brad Shook.
Brad, Jim, welcome to Law Talk.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, John.
Well, we're here to talk about something both of you guys have really dedicated a lot of time and effort to, and it's a favorite program of mine, and it's the mock trial program. And Jim is, of course, our academic advisor for Buckeye High School, correct?
The legal advisor, John.
Yeah, legal advisor for Buckeye.
Yes, correct, for
Okay.
Buckeye, right.
And Brad, you are a student at Buckeye High School.
Yes.
Correct? What year are you in?
I'm a senior.
Oh, you're a senior.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is it for you. We got graduation coming up real soon.
Yeah, in a couple of days.
Okay. Got any, what's your plan for post-high school?
Probably going to Kent State for political science, and then probably go to law school after that.
I see. So Mr. Amodio has definitely had an influence on you. All right.
Hopefully a positive one.
I'm sure that's the case. And, well, Jim, how many years have you been the legal advisor?
I think it goes back, I was thinking about that, John. I think it goes back to the fall of 2000 when I had my secretary at the time had a student, her son, was a student at Buckeye High School, and they were without a legal advisor, so they asked if I would help out. And her son, Steve Skelly, is now a lawyer in Midtown Manhattan.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about that? So there you go, Brad. It's where it all starts. Okay, so what'd you say, 2000 and...
Well, it was the 2000-2001 competition would have been the first one I advised for.
So it's coming up on 12 years.
Pretty much.
Wow, okay. And it's always been at Buckeye, or?
Always at Buckeye.
Buckeye. Okay.
And we always participated in the Medina district.
Yeah.
And that first year, there were 3 teams from Norton that participated, came to our district, and we finished behind all 3 Norton teams, as I recall.
I see.
The year after that, we won the district, and we've won it every year since.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, I had the opportunity of being your judge actually in Medina, and we'll say firsthand, you did a fine job.
Thank you.
Jim, the program, I think, is officially titled the Ohio High School Mock Trial Program, and it is a program that has been around for just about 30 years now, it's my understanding. It was originated actually, I say with great pride, when my cousin Anthony J. Celebrezze was Attorney General of the state of Ohio, was one of the people that initiated the program. Can you tell our viewers, Jim, about it?
Sure, I can. As you said, John, it began in 1983. That was the first year. We're coming up this next season with the 30th anniversary, and I know they're planning something special. There's been some talk of maybe bringing back the original case materials from 30 years ago, giving maybe a different modern spin to the set of facts used back then, as kind of to honor the inaugural year, which was 1983. But essentially, what is involved with the program, John, and I'm glad you mentioned the Ohio High School mock trial competition, because there's also middle school mock trial competition, which is going on right now in May, and a variety of middle schools around the state participate in it. And as well as you mentioned Ohio mock trial competition, because of the 300 or 400 teams that participate in the Ohio mock trial high school competition, the winner, the one you mentioned earlier today, the Indian Hill School this past year, goes on to compete on the national level, representing the state of Ohio at the national competition. They get an entirely new set of facts and new case to argue, and they do it on the national stage.
Oh, I see. So this program, I guess I didn't realize that it is actually in the middle school, so we have youngsters have the ability to get started on this and follow it clear through their high school years. Is that correct?
That's true, and as well, there's also a very active, I know among Ohio colleges, a very active college mock trial program. I had a son who went to Miami, and for 3 years he participated in that. They start late August and go all the way through March. They travel throughout the country, compete with teams throughout the nation.
I see.
And the school, Miami University in Ohio, is consistently in the top 5 mock trial programs in the nation.
I see. Okay. Well, my next question, and I think you've touched upon it very well, it was, give me the history of the program, which you have. Before we dig into the cases, Jim, Brad, you're a senior now, so I guess this was your last go-around.
Yes.
With the How many times have you participated?
I have done mock trial for the past 3 years.
Okay, freshman, junior, senior, or freshman, junior, sophomore, junior?
Yeah.
Your whole 4 years?
Yeah, I started my sophomore year and continued on to my junior and senior year.
Okay. In the program, Brad, there's opportunities to be an attorney, there's an opportunity to be a witness.
Yes.
Have you done both?
At the actual competition, I was primarily an attorney. I also played a bail a few times. During practices, if they needed me to fill a spot, I'd be a witness as well. But my primary thing was a defense attorney.
I see. And is it true when you guys prepare for this, Brad, you have to be able to do it on both sides?
Yes.
In my practice, I think about that every now and then, and what it would be like to have to shift gears.
It's kind of funny because you're going to say one thing in the morning, and then in the afternoon you're going to turn around and say the complete opposite thing.
Sure. Jim, kinds of cases that in the last decade or so you've seen quite a few, but what do you expect to see?
Excellent question, John. The program, and it's administered, I think, by the OCLRE, the Ohio Center for Law-Related Education, they like to involve constitutional questions. So almost every case that we've been actively involved in has a constitutional issue at its core. Like the most recent case that we had, I have the materials right here, State of Ohio versus Storm Jackson, involved a college student who was home visiting his parents on a particular weekend in Glen, Ohio, and that weekend there were 4 thefts of prescription drugs in the neighborhood where he was known to have been. So in order to try to prove at least, that he was a potential thief of the drugs, they being the Glen Police Department, went to the local cell phone company and simply asked, without a warrant, for the GPS records of his cell phone. Got the records and showed, sure enough, he was in the vicinity of all 4 thefts, and the question was that a proper thing that the police did, or did they need a warrant before doing that? And the students got a chance to argue the constitutional questions on both sides.
Fourth Amendment issue.
Exactly. Search and seizure.
Yeah. Whoever puts these things together, I guess it's the law-related education there.
Yes.
They really do a fine job on.
They really do an excellent job, John. They have to, because as you alluded to before, to advance in this competition, the team has to prevail both as either prosecution or plaintiff, because sometimes it's a civil question rather than a criminal case, and also as the defense. So you have to actually win both sides of a case to advance to the next level, and of course to win at the highest level you have to argue successfully both sides of the case. Now it's not always the same student that does that. The way it breaks down is each team consists of from 5 to 11 students, and you could have 5 students, 2 of whom could be attorneys on both sides and 2 of whom could be witnesses on both sides, and the 5th would be the bailiff. But you could also have a team of 10 where one side concentrates on the defense, the other side concentrates on the prosecution or plaintiff. It's up to the team as to how much effort they want to put in, how much time they have to devote to the program.
So you concur, Brad, if you really want to wrap your head around a case, do it both ways?
Yeah. if you're a defense attorney, I would definitely look at what's the prosecution have on
Sure.
you and how can you build a strong defense against that and vice versa.
This case that you worked on here, State versus Storm Jackson, this is really cutting edge stuff when you think about it. I mean, we wish you the best at Kent and wherever you go to law school at.
Thank you.
I wouldn't doubt when you do join the ranks that this will probably be settled law, and there'll be lots of new challenges along those lines as technology marches on. Jim, other than Buckeye, and I know you've primarily been with Buckeye your tenure here, but what other Medina schools participate in this?
The other Medina schools that I'm aware of, John, are Cloverleaf. They've been doing it for the last couple of years, and we've met them at the district competition for the last few years. Prior to that, we had a team from Black River compete very successfully, do very well. Brunswick had a terrific program up until the last few years, and so did Medina. Those are the teams, schools rather, I know that have competed.
Covers most of them.
Most of them, yeah. We really, sadly, haven't had any participation from Wadsworth or Highland that I know of.
I see. How many teams each year, Jim, are allowed to enter?
Actually, it's as many teams as you want.
You could have multiple teams from one school.
Absolutely. We've had as many as 3 from Buckeye, I believe. And I know teams like Hoover out of North Canton have 11 or 12 teams. I think maybe 15 one year they had. So they can send as many teams as they want. I know Hoban, which is not a huge school out of Akron, has like 8 teams every year participate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And a team, once again, consists of how many kids?
Anywhere from 5 students to 11.
Okay. All right.
And the breakdown, by the way, is when we present a case, or the students present a case, there'll be 2 lawyers and 2 witnesses. When they get the materials, there is always 3 witness statements on each side, but the students have to choose only 2 of the 3 witnesses to present. And then there are 2 lawyers. One lawyer does the opening statement, the other does the closing argument, and each of them has to do a direct examination of a witness on their own side and a cross-examination of a witness on the opposing side.
Okay. And for the benefit of our viewers, having judged these, and of course you 2 guys are well aware of these, the judges are given score sheets, and as Jim mentioned, playing the role of, opening statements and closing arguments. The students are rated on a point basis, and again, when we judged you guys, there was myself, Judge Kimbler, and another attorney. There was 3 on the panel.
Yes.
And that's typically what we have. So it's I think it's a fair judging program, but it's pretty rigorous. I mean, we're looking pretty closely, and I think Jim would concur with this. You will too if you continue your legal. Very rarely you're ever going to put 2 lawyers in a room that are going to agree with each other. Right. And, believe me, you put 3 judges on the panel, there's going to be some dissension, and that's fine. I mean, that's what we want as far as a fair scoring, and also looking at the talents of people, because sometimes what in the eye of one judge is totally different in the eye of the other. But okay.
And John, one of the most unique things about this program is, as you mentioned, there are 3 judges. 2 of them are scoring judges. The other judge only scores in the case of a tiebreaker, as a tiebreaker in the case of a tie, but that central judge is the ruling judge. So unlike other competitions, maybe debate, etc., in the mock trial competition, there's always the possibility of objections. You may have some questions that the other side could object to. It's sent up to that ruling judge to either sustain or overrule the objection. So at all times, the students have to be thinking on their feet and be ready for curveballs thrown at them by the other side, maybe by the judge, who might want to see how they react to an adverse ruling on an objection.
Well, I've seen that. I've never done that as a judge myself, but when Buckeye competed here in Medina, Judge Kimbler, our sitting common pleas judge, was actually the tiebreaker in that particular round. That was one of your earlier rounds. I think it was at the sectional. But I guess what I have seen, and you guys probably have experienced this. Well, Brad, you would probably remember this. Sometimes the judges actually grill you guys, don't they? And they
Yeah.
and make you answer questions. Well, for example, if you raise an objection, he's going to ask for the basis of the objection. So you're going to have to. Evidence is a second-year law school class that all lawyers have to take, and it's a challenging class, actually. I noted that you guys had some pretty fair knowledge of the rules of evidence. Are these pointers that Jim gave to you, or was it part of your materials? How did you?
A lot of our legal knowledge that we did acquire did come from Mr. Amodio and throughout some of our other advisors. Yeah, look, it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the advantages you would have, frankly, by the time you reached your senior year, you were somewhat of a veteran. You'd been doing this for a while.
A little.
And, well, there are certain, when you raise an objection, there are certain generic things that are going to come up, relevance and that sort of thing. So you're probably reasonably familiar with it. But I mean, I must say, I was impressed with you guys and all the way to the state level, how, you had a pretty good handle on, a real good handle on the rules of evidence, which, actually in the real thing in courts of law, evidence questions still remain one of the most controversial of all. Judges rule on them, and sometimes the way they rule causes the thing to come up on appeal. And going back to good old rules of evidence, the judging, as you indicated, are a panel of judges. But Jim, when you pass through sectional competitions, a lot like athletics, then you're going to go to a regional?
That's correct.
Okay, so the schools you mentioned here in Medina pretty much made up the sectional, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, who did you get to the regional?
We did.
Well, who is involved in this locally? I mean, who?
Well, actually, the last few years, the regionals have been right here in Medina.
Okay, but
years past,
other schools that had to come here?
Yes. Well, this past year, we had a team from Edison High School come in and compete, and another team from, I think that would be Huron County. In the past, we've had Lake Ridge Academy compete with us. We had a team from Hoban a few years ago. It's whoever makes it through the district level then advances to the regional, and they could assign you to a regional in Cleveland or Akron. In the years past, Lorain County, this past year they didn't participate, but in the past Lorain County has also had regionals.
I see. So Brad, you, in your 4-year tenure when you got to the regional area, you did some traveling?
A little.
Or was it always here in Medina?
My first year, I want to say it was in Lorain. I'm not entirely sure, but the past 2 years it has been at Medina Courthouse.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question about that because, I think we all reach comfort levels, and I personally, and Jim does too, we practice in Medina courts.
Right.
All the time, common pleas and muni court. And we know the judges, we know the bailiffs, we know everybody. This is where we work. Every now and then, though, we have to go to a foreign territory. I was in Trumbull County here not too long ago on an adoption, and I didn't know anybody there. In fact, it took me a while to find my way to the courthouse. When you did that, and I understand it was not every year, sometimes you were able to stay here in Medina, did you note any difference of the venue? Was it more difficult to be out of the Medina area?
I don't know if it was more difficult. It was definitely different, getting used to the different courtroom settings because not every courtroom looks exactly alike.
Sure.
Depending on where you're going to be sitting, standing, where's the judge going to be at,
that's all
where's the
important
bench.
stuff.
Yeah, where's your witness going to be. More difficult, no, but very, very different.
Okay, well, once again, a skill that you acquired there as well. It's when you play ball, you have the home field and you go on the road. It's a kind of a similar analogy. Jim, when you talk about the skills and talents of the kids that participate to succeed in this, you've done it for a decade now, and you've seen your share of success stories and not so successful. What skills and talents are you looking for, or are you seeing? Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
I guess what it boils down to, John, is the ability to focus and work. It takes a lot of preparation. There's really no magic to succeeding in this program. It's all preparation, forecasting what the other team's going to do and how you're going to respond to the things that they do. But beyond that, I guess the most important skills are the obvious ones. You have to be able to read well. A lot of material they have to read and understand and to digest. And then also the ability to write, because the students write their own questions, they write their own opening statements, their own closing arguments.
see.
The witnesses write their own statements based on the material they're given, but they still have to present it in an interesting and informative way. And then finally, the most important skill, I'd say, is the ability to listen. As you know, when you're sitting at the council table, you hear the other side ask a question. If you don't respond right away, even though it's clearly objectionable, if you don't stand up and object, you're not going to get sustained.
That's right.
It's beyond, things move pretty quickly in a courtroom.
Sure.
So the ability to listen and understand and speak on your feet, be articulate, I guess would be the other key skill for students to develop. And I think this program really helps the students develop all four of those: reading, writing, speaking in public, and of course listening.
Well, I say this in all sincerity, having judged them and been part of it for a long time, but you did just bring something new to the table. I guess I assumed that to some degree this was canned as far as their opening statements and whatnot, but you say they actually glean from they have to write their own.
They do.
Yeah.
Now, as an advisor, I mean, so you've written an opening statement
Yeah.
at least once.
Yeah, several times.
Okay, well, did you go to Mr. Amodio and say, take a look, or?
Yeah, definitely. Again, without his help and other legal advisors' helps, none of this would be possible.
I see. No, but there's still the ingredient of your own work in there.
Yes.
Do the bulk of the work, absolutely. We advise and try to, offer insight and suggestions, but
Well, I guess like any other extracurricular, if you're going to play basketball, you're going to have to practice. If you're going to play football, you're going to have to practice. And that's what you're doing with this. But I guess I have a question for you, Brett. Amongst all, do you participate in anything else in any extra?
Yeah.
I kind of thought you did, but name a couple of things that maybe you did this year.
My big thing used to be a cross-country runner. Did that 7th grade through my senior year. I've done track. I used to do a little bit of baseball. Did some musicals. Been involved in a lot of
Yeah,
things.
I kind of thought that was the case. But even with all of that, when you chose to do this 4 times in your career, you had to devote some time to this.
Yeah.
So how long does this season run from the time you pick up getting ready, maybe meeting with Mr. Amodio, till you finish whenever you compete out, I guess?
Yeah, I would say it starts probably late November. Whenever we get the
Okay.
case material.
Yeah, all right. Sounds
And we slowly go over things. Usually you'll see, a large number of people come in, and then we, narrow it down, see who's really, dedicated to it. And it does conflict with some sports things, but it's definitely doable. You can definitely do both.
Well, if my memory's serving me, as I said, I served as a judge at the state level, and I think it was early March. So this thing's got a pretty good lifespan to it as far as you sign up for this thing, you got some commitment. Jim, in a nutshell, I mean, I'm sure you can share a lot of individual stories, but just tell our viewers what the role of the attorney advisor is.
well, basically the attorney advisor, in conjunction with the academic advisor, and I certainly want to give recognition to the excellent advisors Buckeye has had over the years, Mr. Hange and Mr. Smith, both who have moved on to other things, and right now Mr. Parrish is our academic, the school advisor, put a lot of time and effort into first recruiting the students and then, getting them ready to prepare or getting them ready to participate in the competition. But basically what the attorney advisor does is advise on the legal issues. Like you mentioned, the rules of evidence. And not just all the rules of evidence, but those that are relevant to the particular case. And then, of course, the constitutional issues. We're usually presented with anywhere from 6 to 12 cases, most of them Supreme Court opinions. Many of them, as you know, have like 3 or 4 opinions in the one case.
Yeah.
And then we have to help them understand the issues there and the key points and advise them along the way. And then probably the most important thing is once they've put together their questions and their answers, openings and closings, is give them pointers as to how to maybe sharpen them and get them more direct and more interesting for the competition.
Sure. Well, aside from your mentees, your students, you're obviously putting some time of your own in this. Then
we try to go to most of the
Suffice it to say.
practices. That's right. Yes.
I see.
Which are after school in most cases. I know some schools have practices before school. In years past, Buckeye and I think Cloverleaf as well has actually had a class in mock trial. So it runs the entire
I see.
fall semester, where they actually every day, meet for 45 minutes and talk about nothing but mock trial techniques.
And you attended these as well?
I have in the past, yes.
I see.
Not every day, of course, but as many days as I could be there.
Kids will have questions for you.
Sure.
Well, Brad, I see we're getting to the end here, but I'm going to let you bat cleanup because I have a question here that I think is a good question I'd like to ask you. What was the most important thing you learned from participating in this program? I mean, it is obviously a school learning program. It has an academic flair to it. What would you say?
Definitely helped with your public speaking skills and building confidence within yourself. If you go up there and you're giving your speech and you're trying to persuade the judge to your side and you're not confident, you look not confident, it's just not going to go your way. So it definitely helps build up your confidence skills.
Okay.
Being more comfortable with yourself, being more comfortable talking to other people, just kind of, it helps getting out there because you don't necessarily get stage fright as often because you definitely get rid of it through this program.
Sure. So that would be your big one.
Yeah.
It's an esteem builder. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And just team building, you learn how to work with a lot of different people who have a lot of different opinions. You learn how to take all those opinions and bring them together. There's a lot of leadership building in this program.
So, I mean, it seemed like you mentioned there you played some baseball at some point in time. I mean,
Yeah, mainly cross country.
Okay. Well, it's not atypical at the end of most sporting events that you guys go up to each other and shake hands with the competitor. Did you find that same collegiality as far as somebody won, somebody lost in this type of a competition?
I mean, at the end of the day, you go in, everyone knows there's only going to be one winner, but at the end of the trial, it's not like, oh, you hate the other team or anything. It's all good sportsmanship.
Yeah.
It's a lot of acting.
Well, it's certainly another positive aspect of it as well. Well, gents, I very much appreciate you being our guest today on Law Talk. There's an open invitation for both of us to return anytime you want. Next year sounds like it's going to be a pretty special year with 30 years.
It will be.
Okay, and you'll be off at Kent State and moving towards your legal career, so we wish you the very best.
Thank you.
John, thanks very much for your time.
Comments made by John's guest on Law Talk are solely those of his guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of Celebrezze Zangi Community Legal Education Project. To view this show and others, go to www.czclep.org. In the Wandsworth area, a complete listing of dates and times of this broadcast, tune in to WCTV Channel 15 or log on to wandsworthcity.com and follow the links to WCTV. At CZ we're devoted to the education of today's legal issues. Fueled by the public's keen interest in our legal system and current events, CZ is dedicated to the educational venues aimed at enhancing the understanding by all citizens, regardless of age, education, occupation, or wealth. A function of the Celebrezze Zangi Community Legal Education Project.